So, welcome to this episode of Menopause Conversations. I'm delighted to have my next guest with us, who is Petra Coveney. Hello, Petra, how are you?
I'm feeling very spring-like today, and I'm loving the fact that we're both channeling our pink energy, embracing our second spring.
That's so lovely. And we didn't plan it either, did we? This is just totally turning up as we are. Both in our second spring. I'm new to the second spring, and we'll sort of talk a little bit more about what that is. But Petra, so if I just let people know, so my name's Samantha, as I've said, I'm an executive performance coach, and I'm also a workplace menopause consultant. So we go into businesses of all shapes and sizes and do menopause culture for the benefit and service of women and their partners, and to help businesses stay profitable and productive. And I had the absolute joy of meeting Petra last year when we joined Joyce Harper at a roundtable situation talking about the National Menopause Education and Support Programme that she is brilliantly putting together. What do you remember about that day, Petra?
I remember walking into this room of some of the most awesome menopause movers and shakers and being rabbit in the headlights, just in, girl awesomeness. I was just blown away by how many of us had been brought together by the awesome Professor Joyce Harper. What a powerhouse of energy she is. And having known many of them, many of you, on Instagram and on our social media, and we've been talking like we're friends for the past few years. And it really is a community, an online community. But then you meet in the room and you go, wow, here we are, in real life. It was amazing. It was just fantastic. And I took so much energy away from that event. So I'm hoping we'll be able to get to do that again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so we promised each other, we said, right, we definitely have a proper conversation online because Petra is just so phenomenal. So Petra, would you mind, because you'll do such a better job than I will do, introducing yourself to the listeners, because I know they'll absolutely love everything that you're about. Tell us a little bit about you and what it is that you do.
So, in a nutshell, I'm the creator of Menopause Yoga and Wellbeing, a well-being program. I wrote a book about it, which was published in 2021. But I've actually been working in menopause specifically since 2011. And I spent a couple of years getting research, getting feedback from women, running menopause yoga and well-being workshops and classes and courses. And then I officially launched it in 2013. But back in those days, Amantha, nobody else was doing anything. It was still such a taboo subject. And my approach, I'd come from the corporate world. I'd previously been a BBC journalist and a producer, making documentaries and radio programs. And I found I got into my menopause or my perimenopause earlier than my friends, earlier than my family, earlier than my older sister. And I had no idea what was happening. So when I was going through my perimenopause, I felt very lost, very alone, and really shocked that my own GP, my own doctor, didn't know anything about the menopause either. So they just did a blood test and said, yeah, you're in perimenopause, off you go. We don't want to give you HRT, so you're on your own. So that was really quite a shock for me then. I felt really, really lost. And I started sitting in cafes and earwigging older women chatting about things like black cohosh and this and that, going up and talking to strangers, going, do you mind if I ask you a question? And I realized quickly then that what we need going through the menopause is factual medical information. So we know what's happening to our hormones, what's happening to our bodies and our brains. But we also need to know, look, what can I do? If it's not all about medicine and HRT, what can I do for myself? So that then I started looking into nutrition and herbal remedies, etc., etc. alternative therapies, complementary therapies. And that's why I brought that kind of program together for women. But I also realized that we need to have conversations. We need to not be on our own. It can be very isolating, and you can find yourself withdrawing in on yourself. There can be lots of upheaval, as you well know, Amantha, at this stage of life. If it happens to you in midlife, there can be this confluence of life circumstances hitting you at the same time, and that can affect your relationships, your work, and it affected my work. I'll talk about that a little bit in a moment, but what that meant is that when I created Menopause Yoga and the Wellbeing Program, I created these women's circle discussions. Let's get round, let's break the taboo, let's talk about it, let's say it by its name. And back in those days, even my best female friends would not talk about it. They said to me, shh, don't call it menopause yoga, call it hormone balance or midlife yoga. Or I was like, hold on, surely this is the problem. The taboo is one of the main issues. So I created Menopause Yoga. It's an holistic program, but it's not woo-woo. It's not burn some incense, although you might like burning some incense. Some people do. It's holistic in the fact that you and I know, we all know, that the hormone changes of the menopause affect the whole of a woman's body, which means it's physically in her body, in her brain, and that's going to affect her emotions. And depending on how she feels about going in through the reproductive stage to the next stage of her life, it might bring up some emotional upheaval as well. So that's what Menopause Yoga is. I launched it into the world in 2013. And just to complete that, that monologue, I'm sorry, but what happened was I started running these workshops in yoga studios, and women from all over the world were flying into London, literally Middle East, Brazil, all over Europe, flying into London to attend a 3-hour workshop because it was the only place to receive information. And that was a shock for me. We literally were in a studio in London, and I think we had 50 people squeezed into a room that should only have 30. And there were women sending begging emails, which is really upsetting, begging to be able to be squeezed in to the room. And I'm so sorry, there's no capacity. So that was when I realized I'm just one person. I am not enough. And bearing in mind that we didn't have this huge wealth of information that we have now, we didn't have these resources. So I started a teacher training course, and I launched that in 2019. It's a professional accredited teachers training course that now has over 700 fully qualified teachers in more than 40 countries around the world, everywhere from Canada, North America, South America, all the way through the Middle East, Japan, all the way into Australia, New Zealand. And that has just kept growing and growing and growing. So that is the main part of my work, is training other teachers. But I still teach women, the public, and I also run corporate workshops, bringing in some of this health and well-being into the workplace as well. So very much complementing what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what was so fascinating when we met. It was like, oh my gosh, there's so much synergy there. And I'd like to, I mean, it's so wonderful, and everyone has a rich past, don't they? And I always say I'm so fascinated by how people arrive in this space. I've never heard the same story twice. People were doing something else before. I was really in the pharmaceutical industry, and it was home to me. I never ever thought I would be here. That definitely never appeared as an option for me. But funny how life can take you down a path. And you've struck on something there that I'd like to explore with you, which is this whole theme of loneliness. I've heard it about 8 times this week. I was in Wales earlier doing corporate sessions, and a lady came up to me at the end of the session, Petra, and she said to me, "Is it normal to lose lots of your long-standing friends?"
Oh,
And I did have to manage my state, I won't lie, because I have lost some friends along the way. Not just when I was in probably the worst part of my retreat, as I call it, retreating from life, so stepping back. I sort of became a shadow of my former self, and I definitely wouldn't have worn colour. And I said this week at a meeting, the only time I saw colour was when I opened my wardrobe doors, and I go, "Oh yeah, there's all my colourful clothes," and then I just pick something black. Black looks good on me, but it looks even better if I put some color with it. And it's these very, very small changes that we maybe don't realize are happening to us. So what do you think about loneliness, and that stepping back in terms of the menopause transition? Do you see that?
absolutely. I see it absolutely everywhere. I experienced it myself as well. And in menopause yoga, we view the menopause, so perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, we see it as a natural and normal transition in life, just like puberty, as I'm sure you do and all of the medical profession. So it's natural and it's normal, and it's also a rites of passage like puberty and pregnancy for some people, those of us who have children. So there's nothing weird, medical, unnatural about the menopause, but it does come with these hormone changes that are transforming us physically, mentally, emotionally. And so in menopause yoga, we normalize that by drawing on nature. And we say, look, it's as natural as saying, spring is your youth. We can all associate spring
Mm,
and new buds growing with our youth. And then we can see summer as our womanhood, our adulthood, a time of productivity. For some of us, it's reproductivity, but it's definitely a time of abundance and flourishing. And then we come to our autumn. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, we have an autumn. And there is that wonderful wisdom of nature, isn't there, Amantha, of seeing
mm,
the leaves on the trees changing color. And you might see that as negative, but I see it as a beautiful, burning, golden color.
mm.
Or they then drop, the leaves drop to the floor because the trees and the plants are letting go of what they no longer need. There is a wisdom in that if a tree or a plant were to continue being in leaf and flowering in the time of winter, when there's less sunshine, there are fewer insects for fertilization, then the plant would be wasting its resource, wasting its energy, and it may not make it through the cold, dark winter.
So true.
It's so true. And it's just natural, isn't it? And all of us, Northern Hemisphere, we definitely feel like we want to withdraw in the wintertime. We get tireder, it gets darker earlier. So, like hibernating animals, we also feel our energy drops at that time of life. So, in menopause yoga, what we do, and I'd like to share some slides and
Yes, yes, definitely.
share that with you. But what we do is we withdraw in the winter time, which is our perimenopause. So spring is your youth, puberty, summer your womanhood, autumn is your perimenopause, where we're letting go of those hormones because we're moving into the next stage of life. Then winter is your menopause, a time of deep rest, a drawing inwards. And, if you look at Nordic countries, like say, for instance, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, that winter time is a really precious, beautiful time of drawing inwards, where you put the fire on, you get a big snuggly, warm blanket, you snuggle in and read books and chat and tell stories in your families. But then you need to come out into spring. And this is the really important juncture that I work a lot with women. They've drawn inwards in their menopause, so that 12, well, It used to be said it's 12 months without a menstrual cycle, but we now know medically, don't we, that it can take about 3 years to actually come through that menopause stage. Women can get pregnant 2 years into their so-called post-menopause. So it can be a much longer transitional stage. And the drawing inwards is normal, natural, and good, because your body needs to have that time of rest, doing less, reducing stress, my 3 mantra words. But if you get stuck in winter, it's always Narnia. We
Yes.
don't want it to always be Narnia. We don't want to get stuck in the winter, that internal turning inwards. And so I help with the menopause yoga classes, the courses, the workshops. I help women to emerge. And some people feel a little bit wobbly on their feet when they start to come out of that menopause stage. You might have lost your confidence, and you'll see this, don't you, Amantha, in the workplace.
Yes,
Women
definitely.
like you and I and other women who were top executives, running companies, running teams, and suddenly they've lost their confidence because of those hormone changes affecting the brain, affecting your sense of yourself. Your brain fog might mean you're losing your short-term memory. So you got memory retrieval of words, and you go, I've forgotten, what's the opposite of left? Or in my case, I might forget the name of my son and call him the name of my dog who's sitting behind. So we have to laugh about this, but it can feel very unnerving to not feel like you've got those full mental faculties. I also work with women who have lost the confidence to drive, and
Yes.
driving was a key part of their job, or they've lost their ability to look at a simple piece of work on a computer screen, and they look at it and they get overwhelmed. Or simple digital tasks, it's just not working. And so I help women to manage those symptoms, to come to terms with the changes, and then give them really simple skills, simple tools and techniques to help alleviate those symptoms so that they can step into their second spring. How does that sound?
Yeah, it sounds absolutely brilliant. And I would say, I mean, for me, I was perimenopausal for 16 years.
Ooh,
So my daughter was born when I was 34, and by the time I was 36, I already had 14 symptoms that I wasn't connecting the dots on. And I only finished being perimenopausal last year at
wow.
51.
Wow. So actually, you're coming into your menopause, post-menopause at the average age. You just
Yeah.
went in a bit earlier.
Yeah. And I would say if I'd have known that someone with my ethnicity, so I'm half Sri Lankan, I would have been ready for that. And I think that for so many people is the not being ready. Thank goodness. My husband and I were talking this morning and we said, gosh, isn't it a very different landscape to when we were trying to navigate this as a couple with a small child, 18 years ago? I said it was so, so different. And thank goodness it is, but it was really tough. And I just felt no one else was going through it. And the reality was nobody else in my circle was going through it. And so actually that whole loneliness thing, I think can perpetuate very quickly for people. And, we have people all the time saying, I think it might be early onset Alzheimer's. I mean, we know statistically the chance of that is very, very, very low. Very few people actually develop early onset unless it's genetically within families. But the reality is it's probably the stress of it coming earlier, not knowing how to help yourself, not being able to talk about it, all the things that you've said. So can you link for us then how yoga connects into all of that?
And I just want to, to connect it, I'm just going to pick up on one of the words you've mentioned, the stress. So
Yeah.
the stress of going into a perimenopause a bit earlier, and there can be stress in your life. So you're talking about going into it earlier, so it doesn't feel like the natural stage of midlife. And so there could be women with POI, premature ovarian
Yes.
insufficiency, surgical or a medical or chemical menopause,
Yes.
so it's induced earlier. And we also know that women, depending on which country you're living in, whether you're an ethnic minority, you may have experienced the attrition of racism, which also creates more stress in your body. So and then they may go into the menopause earlier.
Yes.
And we also know that in the COVID lockdowns, women who were teetering on the edge of perimenopause or menopause, it tipped them over into menopause or postmenopause. So we know that what was happening is this stress event. And when I first started, people didn't talk about this, and it's really helpful now to really understand that the menopause is a stress event, an internal stress event. Come on, let's be honest. Your body is going through a huge transformation. And for your body and your brain to lose the essential hormones that are not just for fertility, that's a complete misnomer. Women need these hormones for our health and well-being and daily function. Just as
Absolutely.
a man needs his testosterone. You wouldn't say it's just for his fertility, it's for his daily function. So when we start to fluctuate and lose those hormones, it is a stress event inside. But what also happens is it becomes harder for us to regulate stress. So you've
Yes.
got this balance of, you've got your so-called fertility hormones, the estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And then you've got your cortisol and adrenaline. And if the stress in your life is increasing, if you think about weighing scales, the other hormones are not going to have a chance to be produced. And we know this now as fact. I used to say it was a theory. Now we know it's a fact, because as you're going through the perimenopause and menopause, your body still needs those hormones. So it's going to find other ways to locate those hormones. So that's going to be your adrenal glands and your adipose tissues. So let's go back to the corporate world where you were working and where I was working as well. If you've got a lot of stress in your daily life at work, and that might come from responsibility, being higher up the ladder in terms of management and executive role, then that stress is actually going to make it harder for you to rebalance those hormones to navigate that perimenopause change. If you have got lots of stress in your home life, so that home life could be either raising young children, which is, we know, it's not easy. And it could be elderly parents becoming ill, maybe they step into a place of dementia or Alzheimer's, or maybe they pass away. There can be lots of things happening, or maybe even divorce occurring at this time of life. So all of this is just going to increase that stress. So the reason why yoga can be part of an holistic package to support women, and I'm going to say women, but we know people going through.
Yes.
Important to use that word too, not just cisgender women. But the reason why yoga can help is we know there is statistical research to show yoga can help reduce stress. So number one, yoga benefits in that way. But I'd like to share a little bit of a slide with you just to
Of
show the
course.
other things that yoga can do. Let's see if this works.
Brilliant.
So I'm just going to go back. So in menopause yoga is very specific. So it's not like going to a hot yoga class. Hot yoga is not great if you're having hot flushes.
No.
It's not like going to a dynamic Ashtanga yoga class, because if you've got joint and muscle pain caused by the inflammation in perimenopause, then that is not going to be a good class for you. It could lead to more injury. But equally, if you are needing to build up your strength, your muscle strength, your cardiovascular strength in postmenopause, then lying around on the mats doing restorative yoga isn't going to be helpful either. So in menopause yoga, I very, very carefully curated a series of different classes that can be helpful in alleviating some of the common symptoms. And also, I've packaged them for different stages of your menopause, whether it's perimenopause, menopause, or postmenopause. So that's the first thing to say. And then we've got up on here on the screen Women's Circle. So that's what we were talking about earlier, that the discussion, meeting other women, not feeling alone like you did, like that woman did.
Yeah.
Creating safe spaces where people can talk and open up and laugh, sometimes cry, have a good old hug. That is incredibly powerful. So then we've got the specific yoga tools and techniques. And it's important to say, by the way, that I never, ever claim that yoga is a magic pill. A magic pill is just as HRT is not going to cure your symptoms. It's going to alleviate some of the vasomotor symptoms, but it's not going to stop the menopause or alleviate everything. So yoga is also not a magic pill. It's going to reduce your stress. It's going to help stretch muscles and ligaments where it's good. It's also going to help you improve your sleep, your digestion. It's going to help you regulate your nervous system. It's going to help you with balance and proprioception. So that's really important as we get into our post-menopause. We include very specific meditation and mindfulness techniques. We also use some positive psychology, so positive affirmations, and cognitive behavior therapy. Really simple things, though, that anyone can practice. And this is the important part, Amantha. Everything in menopause yoga is designed to be empowering so that women can practice it whenever and wherever they need. So if you're standing in a supermarket with your trolley, or if you're at a bus stop, or if you're in the workplace, there are tools and techniques that I can offer that don't require you to be wearing lycra in a yoga studio on a Thursday night. And that's really important. We need practical tools that people can take wherever they go. And then with this positive psychology, we also include journaling techniques, because there's a lot of wisdom and knowledge that women can tap into, listening in to that inner voice. In yoga, we call it the self, but really I'd say it's just tapping into that reassuring voice that says everything's going to be okay. You've got this. Not losing yourself. You're changing, but the change can be good. So here are a couple of slides. This is an Indian Ayurveda view of a woman's life. And it says we're stepping into the Vata stage of life, the age of the wise woman, the woman who knows stuff. So if you're, working you're in the workplace and you're a manager or an executive, you still know stuff. You know stuff about work, but actually, I'm going to reassure you that you know more than you think you know about how to support your body. So don't always think you have to look outside of yourself for the answers. This is a really simple image of the seasons of a woman's life. And I just like to use this because it shows how natural the menopause is, but that we need to step from that winter stage into our second spring so that we can flourish. And in this picture, you've got the spring is like a new little bud, but your second spring is like a wise oak tree, really deeply rooted. Yeah. And it's got knowledge. So this is what's exciting for me, because you and I, Amantha, we're in our post-menopause. And it doesn't have to be the end of your life. It doesn't have to be the end of your value. It's about embracing this stage of life as a second spring. So on the screen now, you can see this perspective that comes from the Eastern tradition of traditional Chinese medicine. And it's a bridge. And if you step over the bridge, you get into this very beautiful place of second spring with all the blossom. And in traditional Chinese medicine, and I should point out here, I am part Chinese. My mother was half Chinese.
Oh,
So
amazing.
yeah, so she often kind of brought in some of these concepts into our daily life. But the concept of second spring is one of stepping into wholeness, stepping into your own space where your body becomes your own again. So as you enter into puberty, your body starts to become owned by the society and culture around you. It becomes sexualized. That can be a good thing for some people. When you are a woman, you may see your part of your identity as reproductive, or how you look to the opposite sex, perhaps. But as you're going into your second spring, your body becomes your own. So you're stepping into wholeness. And in traditional Chinese medicine, they say that the energy that women used to lose, let go of in their normal menstrual cycle through their bleeding, in TCM, they call it heavenly water. Isn't that beautiful?
That's lovely.
Sort of menstruating, you've got the flow of heavenly water. But as you come to second spring, you don't lose that heavenly water. Instead, that energy cycles from your womb space back up to your heart space. And this is really exciting. So that energy that can cycle up towards your heart, that uprising energy, some of us may experience it in perimenopause as hot flushes. Some of us may experience it as rising anxiety, panic attacks, everything coming up, heart palpitations. Some of us may experience it as menopause rage, that irritability, that short-temperedness. And I'm going to raise my hand up, Amantha, and own up. I've had all of these symptoms. I know exactly how they feel. But in traditional Chinese medicine, they say that we can harness this upsurging energy. And if we can channel it and focus it, it can blossom into creativity. So you think about it, you're leaving behind the procreative side of your life, but you're stepping into a creative stage of life. And this excites me. So these women, these people at work who are going through this transition, please have hope. It's not all doom and gloom. Once you come through the darkness, the coziness, the warmth, the internalizing, that drawing inwards of your menopause, you can step into your second spring. And this is where exciting things happen. So women, I'll do stop me if I'm ranting on here.
It's okay.
But I work with women all over the world. So I see this all over the world, no matter what your ethnicity, no matter what your language, I see this happening. And women tell me after they've been on the workshops, they send me emails. And one woman sent me an email and said, I've always wanted to write poetry, and now I'm going to do it. And she published a book of poetry. Her name is Annie Moore. She's
Oh,
lovely.
okay.
Another woman used to be a travel journalist, and then she had her daughter, and she felt a little bit like her wings had been clipped. She couldn't travel anymore. But then she went on a workshop, and she contacted me about a year later and said her daughter had just finished her A-level exams, And they decided to go travel the world and write a mother-daughter travel book. Yeah,
Wow.
I know. Another woman, she and her husband were having some issues in their marriage, and she remembered while she was on the course I was teaching, she said, when we first met, we actually traveled around India together. And he and I, we used to love motorbikes, but that's all gone now. We have steady, even jobs, and life's a bit boring. And then she contacted me sometime after, and she sent me a photograph of her wearing full leather jacket and
Oh,
trousers
brilliant.
with a Harley Davidson motorbike in Goa. She and her husband were traveling around on the back of their motorbikes.
Wow.
But other women, you don't have to do something like that. Other women might find themselves wanting to join a choir, or starting tap dancing or street dancing, or they might find really drawn to nature. This is a huge thing as well. We really feel ourselves like a siren call, being drawn into being outdoors in nature. So people start gardening or running an allotment. Or, and this is exciting, Amantha, and this taps into your corporate world, I hope. Women start to find their voice. So you and I know, and if please stop me if you'd like to ask a question. You and I know that as the estrogen declines, the brain is changing. So Dr. Lisa Mosconi's book, published in March, is revealing all of this in a lot more detail. But as the estrogen declines, it affects our other hormones that the brain produces. So oxytocin, noradrenaline, dopamine, serotonin. And the veil of complicity starts to drop. And we start to look around and we notice things and think, hold on, that's not fair. That's not just. I don't like the way this is being done. This isn't right. And we start to find our voice. Did you know that women going through into postmenopause, the timbre of our voices drops subtly?
No, I didn't know that.
What's interesting is a lower timbre of voice is associated with authority.
Mm.
So women start to find their voice. Now, you may have noticed that yourself or with your clients, that it comes out in terms of that menopause rage.
Mm.
And I also see out on social media a lot of shoutiness. That's okay. But what I help people to do is to channel that rage and channel it into outrage, which is a positive form of energy for social change. And this is where I think you and I, Amantha, and the women you work with in the workplace, this could start to be really exciting. Because as we start to step into our second spring, find our feet, own that space, yeah, channel that energy, I believe we are going to be creating the next generation of future leaders.
For sure.
What are your thoughts on that then?
I think all of that resonates hugely with me, and I think as you've just put there, I also think people are much more comfortable with no, and not no as in a way of diminishing themselves, but a way of just not, something doesn't fit with their values. We do a lot of work around your values, your purpose in life, all of these sorts of things. You get clearer on who you are, and therefore your tolerance to things is grounded in, actually, this does not sit well with me, so I'm saying no. And there's so much power in saying no, either no to the next career step that's been offered to you because it's just been offered to you. If it doesn't resonate with your values, people have the confidence that they didn't have access to in their 20s or 30s, or even if they did, they didn't really fully know how to utilize it in a way that empowered them. So yes, I love this, and I think I was talking to a friend, a colleague quite recently. Someone asked me, could I at short notice do an executive keynote speech around coaching, and I said no. And I said I wasn't willing to do it in 6 weeks' time because I didn't think that was the answer. Now, 20 years ago, I would have been going, oh my gosh, I'm so privileged to have been asked. I should absolutely say yes. But I found myself saying to this colleague, listen, if this company is going to throw a lot of money at this in 6 weeks' time, it screams desperation to me. And that is a bit like me accepting a poison chalice. I'm not putting my reputation behind putting a sticking plaster. I said, if they want to come back to me and do a proper 6-month program where we can empower people. Nobody wants more goals in 2024. I think we're so over goals. I think particularly what women want is to feel empowered to make more choices, to make maybe better decisions in service of themselves or in service of other people. But yes, I love all of this. This is right up my street. It's not good enough. So I love everything that you've said there, and that synergy resonates hugely with me.
That's wonderful. It's so good to hear that you stepped into your power by saying no because it wasn't right for you. And so you and I, we are, even though you're just into your second spring, I'm 9 years in my 9th year of second spring. So I noticed some changes and shifts. But I also just wanted to say that it's so important, isn't it, in the workplace to share this knowledge because it means we're reaching younger women.
Mm.
That's where I think the workplace becomes exciting because younger people are going to be coming to any kind of workshop or talk that you do, men as well. And so they're going to become aware of what is the menopause, what happens, and the positive sides of it much earlier in life. And that's where we're going to see more change then, really, really snowballing in the future. So I just want to give you a little personal taste of this. My daughter, my son and my daughter, they're like, yeah, mum, all about the menopause all the time, all the time. But my daughter, who is 25, she has had a job for a few years, and she has a postgraduate degree on top of her normal university degree. And she was very worried about whether her contract was going to be renewed in her workplace. And the person who owns the company is a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And she went in to discuss her new job contract with her employer, a bit worried about how things were going to go.
Yeah.
And I had a chat with her before she went in, and she said, look, I need more money. Rent, bills, everything is going up. But also, I need more holiday time. I
Mm.
need to have that work-life balance where I feel like I can do the things I want to do in life. She went in and she negotiated with her employer, her female employer, and she came out with more money and more holiday. And I was like, woo, fantastic.
Brilliant.
And this is the way to go, standing up for ourselves, but not in a confrontational way,
No,
but in a confident way.
for sure. And I think it's about valuing yourself. I was talking to a wonderful lady, I don't know if you know, called Abby Adams, who is a project woman. She runs, and I think it's this common language is getting louder now. The common sort of leaning into the fact that actually this is this one life that we have. We could keep putting ourselves bottom of the pile, or we can elevate our importance and our status and the fact that we do matter. And surrounding yourself with the right people, I believe, is so, so important. So I suppose coming full circle in our conversation, which is I do also think it's important that sometimes people aren't ready to come the full journey with us. And I love the phrase that, some friendships and relationships are some for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I think as long as we're all willing to meet people where they're at, and if it aligns with our values, then that sounds great. Because what I have often found is that sometimes when someone else's needs supersede your own, they start to encroach on your boundaries. And I think through this lovely process, what people start to understand about themselves is it's okay to have boundaries.
Absolutely. And just a little note on that as well. So when we go into our second spring, which is where you've stepped into, and I'm not nearly well, in my 9th year, there are seasons that also occur in your postmenopause.
Right.
So your initial postmenopause, your initial second spring, once you've found your feet, can feel like a surge of energy, a surge of creativity, a surge of productivity. And that's exciting. So women are starting to create and do and produce new things. But when we're in our postmenopause, we actually need to look after our essence, our energy more. So when you're really young, you might fritter it left and, right and party and drink alcohol and say yes to everything, like you were saying earlier. But as we get into our postmenopause, we need to conserve that energy a bit more. So you're going to blossom and grow in your second summer. So that's a real time
Yes. Okay.
for productivity, yeah? But then you're going to step into a place where I'm stepping into, remember, everything is about transition. And I'm stepping slightly into my second autumn, not there yet. I'm still in my second summer, but I have to be careful. So this is also where with my menopause yoga and well-being, I need to be selective. Do I say, yes, I'm going to go out for 3 events in the evening this week? No. Do I say, yes, I'm going to drink alcohol every night of the week? No. In fact, actually right now I'm teetotal, just because if I drink, I don't have that energy the next day.
No.
Am I going to say yes to all of those needs of my friends who say, I need you for this, I need you for that? I'm go, actually, no. So actually channeling what you were saying, Amantha, of being more selective. Where do we place our energy? And then also finding time to recharge our batteries,
Yes.
however that might be. We've got to nurture and nourish ourselves. So, instead of giving, it's okay, I've got to conserve my energy, but also nourish it. So for me, that might be, okay, I'm not going to teach a class at 8 o'clock in the morning every week, every day. 4 days a week, I'm going to go up and I'm going to walk the dog or have a swim with my girlfriends on the beach. Or maybe it's, I'm not going to work late, I'm going to read a book and go to bed early. It could be, I need to eat my meals earlier because I'm
Mm.
in my post-menopause. For me, I need to digest my food earlier. So I'm not going to have dinner at 8. Can you see how it
Oh, hugely. And I think it can feel quite jarring for people initially, because if whatever your cultural background, your familial background, the narratives that you've been carrying, and I often say to people, it's not uncommon for people to be carrying narratives that just haven't served them all of their life, and this wonderful opportunity to rewrite that. So I agree with all of those things, and usually, when you look back and you go, okay, so I made that decision and nothing bad happened. I feel really good about it, or actually other people are benefiting also by me making that decision. And I think what's quite lovely is that we look to role models during this time. I know my daughter, like your daughter, I'm all, me as I am now is all that my daughter's ever known, is a perimenopausal mother. So she's very well versed in that. So she's very in tune with her hormones. And I think it's a good thing. I think we need to see. So many people said to us this week when we were doing workplace menopause sessions, my wonderful, beautiful colleague, June Potts, and June is 59, I'm 52. And one of the loveliest comments that we had was, watching you two women stand in your power and deliver these half-day sessions gives me hope. And I think that's a wonderful thing, isn't it, for us all? And that's what we felt that day, wasn't it? That collectively there was hope. And I know I could talk to you forever, but I know we're gonna have to do a part two, Petra. But if we come sort of bring things to sort of to a summary, if you could say to someone who finds themselves in this place right now and maybe does feel a little bit lost, does feel a little bit like, I'm not really sure what is best for me. I mean, what could they lean into right now, just to, as we bring this to a close, what could they lean into?
So I would say that there is a lot of information out there. Try to go to the most trusted source of information, because there's a lot of noise around the menopause at the moment. So go to trusted sources of information, but actually you have some answers for yourself. So trust yourself. So the way that yoga can help with that is either with a simple seated or lying down breathing techniques. Even if you were to just drop into your parasympathetic, so you could take a deep breath in through your nose, exhale softly out of your mouth, making your exhalation longer. So you might breathe in for the count of 4 and exhale for the count of 5 or 6, placing your hands on your abdomen. Simple breathing, lying down or seated in a chair. If you're in a chair, make sure the soles of your feet are both touching the floor, because that also gives you a sense of grounding, the earth, the ground around you. And with that deep breathing, do about 10 rounds of that deep breathing, and then just sit and ask yourself the question, what do I need? What do I need now? Because actually, if you listen into that voice, she, who, they will give you the answer, because every woman is individual. Your life is not my life. Your resources are not my resources. But what is it you need right now? And then the next question, which is actually the real big one, can I give myself permission to give myself what I need? Yeah. Do I
Yeah.
give myself permission to give myself what I need? And for those of us who've spent, a whole generation of giving, 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 can we actually say, I am the priority? Because just reminding yourself, if you think about that big soup pot, and as a woman, as a person in your life, you might have been ladling out that soup to your work colleagues, your family, your partner, your friends. And you get to this stage of life and that soup pot is empty. You're scraping the bottom. So if you don't put something into your soup pot to start nourishing and nurturing yourself, you've got nothing to give anyone. So the wisdom comes from prioritizing yourself, nourishing yourself for yourself, but also for the benefit of those you love and care for.
Yes, that's so powerful, and one of my favorite things that I say to people is the most powerful two words you'll say to yourself is I am. If you preface most things like I am worthy, I'm tired, I need to give myself something, I am. You can tune into that rather than maybe the negatives of I am, but actually what is that telling you? And I love the thought that every feeling or every emotion is telling you something, it's signaling to you. So that is wonderful. I really love that. And so I know already that people will be like, oh my gosh, how do I get even more time with Petra? But before we do that, I always like to ask my guests, Petra, about their hope for the future for people who are going through this midlife stage, either if they find themselves here naturally or, like you say, surgically, chemically, just through other means. What would you hope if we crystal ball into the next 5 years?
I would hope that there was a one-stop shop of trusted information that people from all backgrounds, all economic circumstances could go to for menopause education and information. And I very much hope that Professor Joyce Harper is able to do that with the new menopause program she's hoping to create at UCL, a one-stop shop, so that we don't get bombarded left, right, and center, which creates confusion. But in addition to that, I hope that the women like us all around us can come together like we're sitting around a big campfire and share our stories and experiences and knowledge for the better of everyone, rather than taking this camp or that camp. Let's just come together in this big women's circle, sharing our knowledge. And that I do truly believe that if we do this, the women coming up behind us, like your daughter, my son, it's
Yes,
the men in our lives as well, that
absolutely.
their experience of the menopause will be that it is a normal, natural stage of life, and that they will look forward to it. Number one, because it's a rites of passage, taking them to a really exciting, creative stage of their lives where they become whole. But that I also hope that the world listens to those women, that it allows it to be a place where women can step into their leadership, so that we are shaping our future, but not just our future as women in postmenopause. I hope that we can step up into those leadership roles to really become accountable and make change in the world around us.
Yes, I love that. I love that. That's so wonderful. I've been attending some of the talks at the United Nations this week, online. So I'm a United Nations women's delegate. A lot of amazing people are. 6,000 people were chosen to attend. Lots and lots of applications. But there are so many wonderful conversations happening in service of women. I mean, we have a long, long way to go. The fact that we have something dedicated 2 whole weeks to daily discussions about everything from period poverty to how do we enrich girls' lives, how do we make things better, how do we create better male allyship. And I think that is very, very key to all of this. I'm glad that you've mentioned that. I think those are wonderful things to aspire to, and I think we're getting there. And yes, Professor Joyce Harper, I can't imagine for 1 second this won't be delivered, because she is such a force of nature, and she has surrounded herself with people who are also keen to bring others into the fold. This is not a cliquey club. This is like lots of people with vested interests who are giving their time freely to endeavour to shape something that is beneficial to all. So I loved how you said that. So Petra, as we draw to a close, how can people be in touch with you more? Because why wouldn't they want to be? I mean, you've got courses coming up, haven't you? So tell people how people can be in touch with you, and we'll put everything on the show notes.
Thank you. So you can find me at menopause-yoga.com. menopause-yoga.com. That's my website that has resources for women, for yoga teachers, for the workplace, for media, anyone interested in that side of things, podcasts, including yours. And I'm on Instagram at menopause_yoga. So in this year coming up, the course has not only been translated into Japanese, but we're also getting the course accredited in Australia, which is exciting.
That's exciting.
And then it's getting accredited in the United States as well. So lots of expansion worldwide, and that's wonderful. The more people out there to support, the more women out there, people going through the menopause, the better.
Oh, it's been an absolute delight to speak to you, and I know so many of my connections will be curious to link in with you. And Petra's Instagram is just utterly stunning. And it evokes the same energy that you feel when you experience her here now. She is one of the warmest people, and I felt your warmth instantly that I literally bumped into you next door, and we gave each other a hug, didn't we? It was just suddenly that instant, and you suddenly go, oh my god, we actually haven't even said hello. But you are such a warm and kind person, and you can feel the energy that you're evoking. That's sometimes all that people need, isn't it? Just a shift to be in the company of someone whose energy is where they want their energy to be. So I hope we have another conversation. Maybe let's have another conversation once we're done and dusted with Professor Joyce Harper. But yeah, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're incredibly busy, and it was so lovely to see your slides. We've not had guests do that before, so that will add real value. And this episode is going out right in time for the beginning of spring here in the Northern Hemisphere. So thank you so much for your time today, Petra.
Thank you, Amantha. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.